What's good, everybody? Antonyami here, back at it again with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about my Nats experience and the two different decks I took for the main event, and then the one we did for the 3v3. So Nats itself was very, very fun. I got super destroyed. I got kicked out around round 6, went 3-3, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But the matchups I lost to were two Vanquish Souls players, and I lost to a Protoss Featherstorm games 1 and 3. So it's like, yep, that was cool. Learned a lot from those game states and stuff like that. So one of the games was very winnable versus Vanquish Soul, but I kind of threw, so it was kind of on me. I think it was like round 4 or something like that. So hey, you live and you learn. I haven't really been play testing versus Vanquish Soul, so that result makes very much sense, right? So only downfall for that. But here we're gonna talk about my list here that I took for Nats, and we're gonna talk about some of the things that I changed for the 6v6 and went undefeated in this. Oh, or sorry, 6v6, the 3v3. Sorry, too much Mario Kart World brain. And some of the changes and what mistakes I made in deck building this deck in particular, right? So as you guys can tell, I have 12 non-engine here. I have like the typical 12 starters here. You have Foolish Burial for an extra starter, and then I play the Fiendswift engine, right? And then of course you play your typical like the 3 main monsters for the Mizurugi. And I'm playing Crescendo in the main and Purification, which these were like fantastic in the main all day. Like, you break boards, you end on Crescendo is strong. You also do the same thing here. You break boards, you end on this for like if they try to push back, it's harder. So it was fantastic. Side deck wasn't anything too like fantastic. I always been a big fan of playing all the Charmies. The Charmies put in work, which is fantastic. In the matchups they were supposed to when I drew them, and I didn't get ashed. And Lancia is just Lancia because it's versus one of my worst matchups, which shout outs to the person, I forget his name, but the guy that won Nats with Orcus. I was like, I don't know how you even get to that far with Orcus, let alone win. And he made most of his Malice players go first. So I probably will go back and watch finals again and see how he kind of like sequenced everything. But I think Adia through a little bit or something. I can't remember. I don't think he played his best, especially in games 3. I think game 1 and 2 was like whatever, but game 3, I think he kind of sold a little bit. The Bestials were fantastic. It was great for the Fiendswift engine. It was great for Mizurugi. These cards played a very big role. And of course, the Trilogy here. The one I didn't like out of all of them was Crossout. I drew Crossout, but it was dead because it was versus Malice. And I don't typically side in Bestials, and they had Bestials. So I drew this card, and their only interactions were Bestials, and it wasn't that great. But, I mean, overall, it's still a good card, but I typically did not cross out a single thing this entire tournament. But I have Draw Call by the Grave, and Talents, there was a game where I opened both of these, and that's just, like, game over and full combo. So, yeah. Nothing to really talk about the extra deck here. You don't really need to play multiple of these cards at all. And in my second deck profile, I did play multiple. Like, you don't need to play multiple of these. You don't need to play multiple Galatea, things like that. If you know how to resource and manage your deck, if you're playing straight pure Orcus, you could probably get away with it. But I don't think pure Orcus is viable at all because I think it has consistency issues. So you need a second engine to help push the consistency of the deck. And I went with Mitsu because you can make a zombie vampire and you can bridge the engine. And also, of course, if you guys already know, Mitsu can also be a standalone engine. There's been games where I won straight, which is the Mizurugi engine. There's been games where I won with straight Raizio engine or Raizio, straight Orcus engine. And then they have the ability to bridge, right? So it's really, really strong. And then my thought process with the Fiendswift engine is it helps kind of cover both of the weaknesses of the deck, right? Orcus typically have a hard time versus Lancia, and Habakiri Mizurugi engine had a hard time through Droll, right? So both engines can bridge into the Fiendsmith engine pretty easily, and then end on like maybe a partial board of Mitsurugi or Orcus, and then have like a Caesar behind it, right? So, and Fiendsmith follow up, which in theory it was great. Um, as we get into our second profile, I'll talk about why I felt like this was incorrect choosing. And yeah, so but yeah, the Fiendsmith engine itself is really, really, really strong, and it's like so natural when you go normal summon Gearsu effect, tokens, and then you go into Link One. Link One searches for a crown, and then you go into like the Fiendsmith engine, and it feels so natural. The issue I had with it was the amount of Bystials that were in this format. I got Bystial almost like every other game. It was insane. Or DD Crow. Like Vanquish Soul kept DD Crowing Bystial me, and Fua was everywhere. So when you get hit with Fua, this deck doesn't perform as great as it should, right? So going with the weaknesses of the deck, there was one thing I forgot. And I did make a video on Fua, but Fua doesn't allow you to play Fiendsmith at all, right? And the biggest weakness of this deck is that all three of these engines have an impact into Fua, even though it may be like Ritual Summon from deck and there's only one draw, right? But if you start with Habakiri, that's two draws. And if you want to get into Murakumo, you have to, summon from the deck unless you hard drew it or you had a way to search it, right? And there's a combo line, which I will probably talk about in the near future about this, but it is what it is. But it plays around Fua like almost completely, because if they chain Fua to your Habakiri, you get them one draw, but you can still end on like Mizurugi, Murakumo, and I think Trap through just one draw. It's either that or prayers. I can't remember, but you do end on this plus prayers, so it's good. So yeah, the biggest issue I had was when I got Fua and I had no way to like Ash or draw myself, is that this engine never came up. And when I'm sometimes Dark Lock, because you do get a hand trap in a way. So like say for example, if your Gearsu gets hand trapped, or if you go normal summon Harp, Link away, and your Link 1 gets hand trapped, which happened a lot, your Fiendsmith engine is cooked because now you're Dark Locked and you can't play these engines. And the reason why that's important is because you lose 6 cards out of your extra deck throughout the entire game. Not only that, my Requiem got ashed a lot. And since I have such a small Fiendsmith package, I don't really get the hard draw the Fiendsmith stuff. They're out the game. So you're losing 6 extra deck slots. So with all that being said, I think this list was like okay, and it performed pretty well. I think I didn't play it perfectly, which was like unfortunate. But we're gonna go ahead and get into like actual paper Yu-Gi-Oh right here, and I'll show you guys the deck that I took to the 3v3, and you'll see how this is like a lot better, right? All right, guys. So we're here with the actual deck list here. That was insane. We got to top 16 in a 3v3. I think it was like a total of sorry for the math here, but it's going to be 256 players divided by 3. So we won 5 rounds in a row, but on my side, I went undefeated, right? So I went basically 5-0 with this list, and I could have kept like pushing and stuff, but team effort. We did a really good job as a team. We went against a lot of like tough opponents and stuff like that. It made it pretty far. So, but yeah, it was a great experience. And let me go ahead and show you guys this version of the deck, because this was like by far the best way that I played the deck, right? So, of course, as we always start with the non-engine, triple Ash. I mean, nothing to talk about it. Triple Droll, triple Fua. Shout out to this mat. This mat is really cute. I really do like it. Triple Imperm. New change. I changed these over droplets because of this card right here, Impulse. And of course, the Pot of Prosperity, which is really, really good. So now we went from like 12 non-engine to basically 15, and then Pot of Prosperity. So very, very strong here. This list is 41. I added this Pot of Prosperity just because I just wanted it. Like, I feel like it wouldn't hurt the consistency of the deck, and I wanted another card to like be like engine and non-engine. And since I'm not playing the Fiendsmith engine because I'm playing Impulse, by the way, Impulse is insane, and I'll talk about a theory behind that in a second. Impulse is really really insane. Pot of Prosperity was really really good. And I have like ton of non-engine or extra deck space now in my extra deck, and I'll talk about some of the changes I would have done. And I couldn't find a certain extra deck card, so we'll talk about that when we get there. But in theory, I learned a lot at this tournament, and why I decided to play the Impulse is because when the format is wide, right, and your deck is actually viable to like win a YCS or nationals or whatever, my deck building theory is going to be a lot different now. So now I'm going to really heavily imply to like obviously still side or main cards for like the top deck threats like the Malice, the Mizurugi Orgus decks that are going to be popular. But when the format is very very diverse and there's a lot of decks that you need to play through, it's better to actually side deck to your weaknesses, right? The decks that will literally have a very good matchup over you. And I always said that this deck had a very tough time into Malice, because if you get into a grind game versus that deck, White Binder eats you alive. If that card resolves and starts banishing cards from your graveyard, and you don't have Babel or they stop you to get to Babel, it becomes like skewed in their favor, right? And then you literally just die the next turn because you don't have enough resources to stop their access code push. So the impulses are here to stop that matchup, right? And then since Mizurugi is very, very popular, this card right here in the mirror match or the mirror match, right? It stops the ritual spell. So in the 3v3, when I went against the Mizurugi Raizio deck, it was just so easy to stop the Mizurugi with the impulse, because I'll go like if they go Habakiri, I'll chain Fua. I draw a card, they do all their little crazy shenanigans to get to the ritual spell, you go impulse. And you get a couple of draws off of this, and it's great. And if they're like normal summon ice, which happened in one of my matches in 3v3, and they had to go like detonator and stuff, like I got like 3 draws off that, and it was just like so free. And then I impermed the detonator and then took the detonator with my Orcus engine. So it's like, yeah, the non-engine was like the biggest issue because going second was very hard a lot of the times, and having that much non-engine fixed the deck immensely, right? And still keeping up with the consistency of the actual deck, right? So then we still have our 3 Heart Pourers. I mean, standard. You play 3 Gear Suits. I think this is standard. I noticed that the Orchids player that won didn't play Wand or Nightmare. He played double Skeleton and played, of course, the Crown. This card's crazy. Even outside of the Defensive Engine, because I usually go first, summon this card, and then go into Defensive Engine with it. But now I search a lot of Babel, and I end on Babel plus Crescendo, which is still pretty good, right? And there's some scenarios where you want to search this to go into your Galatea line. So, yeah. But I like the one symbol. It could I could see arguments of cutting like Nightmare, because Nightmare is technically a break. His boost effect has never came up relevant into the Nats format, but it can still come up to boost your monsters. But that effect is like very is like whatever. But Wand, I think Wand is insane because there's some lines where you can send Wand to the graveyard. And this is kind of why I probably will keep Nightmare, because there's ways that you can like recycle your Nightmare and put this back in the graveyard, and you go Nightmare, dumping Wand, and then summoning this card from your hand, right? So I probably would never cut these, and I will probably keep this exactly the way it is. But I could definitely see arguments of like cutting both of the Wands and then going to Silver Skeleton, because these are like high key bricks, right? So, but no, I'll keep it the way it is. I do like the way it feels, and I like the combos I go for. So, nope, I'll keep it just like that. And of course, you play the one Foolish Burial because it's Foolish Burial. Then, of course, Babel and Crescendo cards are literally just crazy cards. A field spell that turns all your monsters into quick effects is very unique, and I love it. For the Mitsurugi engine, we're gonna play the triple Habakiri. I mean, obviously, right? The broken card of the deck, and then you play the prayers, also broken. I was hoping there would be a ban list that happened right at the end of Nats, but I think there's like an EU Nats that's happening or something, and that might be one of the last Nats that we have or nationals that we have. So we'll probably see a ban list that will probably hit these cards. I don't know if this is going to 1 or this is going to 1. I feel like this should go to 1 and ban imps or something, but yeah, this engine, it was like insane. I drew these cards and these cards resolved, like the game was pretty much over. Aramansa, Saji, Kusanagi, like obviously you need to play one of each of these. This is full combo by itself, but I mean, normal summoning this just shows weakness and it gets hand trapped, it's over. So yeah. But if you draw prayers with these cards, it's not like super terrible, especially like with these two. This one is like the worst one. But these two, at least you can get something out of it, where this one doesn't do anything by itself. So whatever. You play the one Mirakumo. This card is the big reason why you play the deck in the first place. This card is insane. And then you play one Purification and one Ritual. Yeah, so that's the Mitsu engine. I thought about playing like pre-prep and stuff like that, but I didn't want to hurt like my non-engine slots and stuff like that. And I didn't want to go to like 45. So, but yeah, this is 41. The last card I added at the very last second was Pot of Prosperity. So that's why it was at 41. And honestly, it was perfectly fine. Let's go into the extra deck. Now we have the double Galatea. And again, after the main event, I decided to revamp my deck because I wasn't going to do it at first. I was like, let's run it back with the same list. But no, I decided to, with the cards we had on hand, we decided to bump this to 2 because I needed, 6 extra slots to fill in the Fiend's slots. So I was like, I can throw in my other Galatea, which is completely fine. And then I also threw in a second Galatea. These 2 cards never came up. FYI, like I just threw them in here just because I had space and Pot of Prosperity and stuff. And then I guess just in case somebody's playing Unicorn, whatever. But if you are getting hit with Unicorn, they're going to rip this card every time. So like that doesn't really matter. But ripping this card is also important too, because now your Harp and stuff doesn't become 1-card starters. So this is my argument to see this at 2 just because you run into that situation, but you don't need 2 of these at all. So, yep. That's that for that. You play one Lone Gear Suit. I haven't really labbed a lot of the combos with this deck, and this card has come up in a lot of situations, but I don't know if you need it for going first or anything like that, just because in this list you're playing double Galatea. But no, strong card. Really do like it. Lone Gear Suit. This card is very custom. Every time I summon this card, I feel like I just win the game. Like every single time. It's very, very custom. So yeah, this card is insane. Major reason why you should play the deck. One SP Lutonite, one IP. Pretty standard here. One card that I did miss out of my list, and it came up a lot of times in the Fiendspell version. I was like, if I can put in a 16th card, it would be Dark. And for the 3v3, this card came up like every match. Every single match. I took people's Murakumos. I took people's Dark Monsters in general. When I was playing Bestials versus them, I took their Magma Moot and then used the effective search and then go into like SP Lutonite or something, or just keep going from there. Like it was just insane what this card is doing. I feel like if you are playing Orcus, Dark has to be in the list because it's like literally one of the best things. And since like people are getting hit with Protoss and stuff and calling Dark and you auto lose, should tell you how important this card is, because every top deck is playing Darks, or if they're not playing like some Darks, they're playing fully Dark decks. Even versus like something like Vanquish Soul, you can take their heavy Borgor and start drawing because your entire deck is Dark. So like, yeah. This card, honestly, the more I look at this card, the more I read this card is insane. This card is insane. I feel like it works really good when you're making like IP on your inboard and you usually link off the monster in the extra monster zone. There are some combos where I would just put IP in the monster zone here, and I would put the link 4 down here, only because the graveyard effect of this card doesn't come up as much as you think, and people are aware that it does come up. So a lot of times they'll get rid of your Babel first and then get rid of this card if they sequence it correctly. So I might make an inboard where I start putting IP on the top, and then you go into this, and it's just really, really solid. So I guess I'll talk about it for people that don't know. So this card cannot be. Oh, sorry. you cannot special summon or set monsters to a zone this card points to. So you is referring to yourself. So that means you can't, right? So if you somehow make this in your main monster zone, you can't summon it up here. That restriction is on you, right? So yeah, don't say it locks your opponent's arrows unless I'm wrong about it. But the way I'm reading it, it says you. So I mean you as the player can't summon or set to monsters that this card points to, which should never come up, right? Then after that, monsters that this card points to cannot attack and cannot activate their effects. So that's what's really important about this card is that, like, say for example, well, I guess it turns your SP loader or it turns your IP into like almost like a monster negate in a way. And there's some scenarios where SP Loader Knight is like fine to make, but a lot of the times SP Loader Knight can't handle all situations. And turning IP into like a pseudo imperm, and this card is like really annoying to out. It's really broken. So there was a time where my opponent summoned Fenrir and they activate the effect of Fenrir as a search, right? I went IP effect, IP, summoning this into where the Fenrir was. And then since it was pointing to Fenrir, once Fenrir resolve, it's going to resolve negated. So, and the Fenrir can't attack, which is also very important. And then this card right here, it gains attack to equal to the original attack power to all the monster it points to, right? So it will always be stronger by 100 if it's always pointing to one monster. But if there's multiple monsters that this card is pointing to, it's negating their effects. It's also stopping their attacks, and it's getting like stronger. So this card is like really, really good in that sense as well. And this card can be destroyed by battle, or is it just by battle? It can be destroyed by battle or monster effects if it doesn't point to anything. So it's like very awkward to out. It's always going to be like one of the strongest monsters on board. If you don't like summon a monster that's like this card is pointing to, then it can't be destroyed by monster effects or destroyed by battle if it happens to lose by battle for some odd reason, right? So yeah, so you almost like you have to play into the link arrows to literally out this card in most decks. And this card was phenomenal. Again, I'm gonna talk about this card more in the future, but it's really, really, really good. So yeah, I love this card a lot, and I think it should be almost like a mainstay in Orcus engines or Orcus decks. You play one Ding. Yeah, I just play one Ding, one Zombie Vampire. This card rarely came up because it was risky to go into because your Mitsu engine doesn't typically play into Imperm. So if you do all that, you give them a reason to imperm something, and yeah, it's tough. So this one's like scary. I do like it, but only in certain matchups, especially when if I know they're on like mad board breakers, then yeah, but it's scary. Code never really summoned it, but I put it in there just because one Pharaoh Imps and then one Sky Crisis. So the thing I would change, since I barely went into the second Galatea, and there's an obvious card that I'm missing because I didn't pick it up until after 3v3, couldn't find it, but it was Dynamondo. Dynamondo comes up so much in this deck, so I would trade a Galatea for Dynamondo, and yeah, that would be this list right here, right? Sky Crisis hasn't came up at all either, but I can see ways where it will probably come up. So yeah, so he's good too as well. But it was just like I had so much extra deck slots, so a lot of times I feel like he might get Pot of Prosperity away for what it is. Same thing with this guy. Sometimes Zombie Vampire will get potted away. It depends on if I have Mizurugi engine that can get potted away, and I can probably banish a Link 1 here. And I guess in this sense, I could probably banish this if I need to, if I don't need it, or it just depends on the situation, right? So, but yeah, overall, great main deck and extra deck. Let me go into the side deck. We played the triple Lancia, of course. Actually, my side deck is basically the same, so I'm not gonna go into it. It's just the same side deck from the previous deck list. So yeah. All right, guys. But thank you guys for watching. if you guys made it this far into the video, I appreciate you. I will be going back to more White Forest content because I know a lot of people came up to me and said that I betrayed them because I decided to play Orcust instead of White Forest. But White Forest will become infinitely better in the next format, so I'll be cooking that up as well. So, but yeah, thank you guys for all watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.